Muslims have a critical mass of scholars, of mosques, and of institutions of learning, which essentially bind the Muslim to his or her community from an early age. These are places like Chicago, places like parts of New Jersey, perhaps parts of Texas. I suppose I can give a shout out to Toronto or maybe Vancouver. I don't really know too much about Canada. Canadian guys can tell me where they are. But this is, this is so I would say American Muslims, their goose is a bit cooked, except for those who attach themselves to strong communities and to sources of proper religious authority. In the UK, that's not the case. It's a country the size of Alabama, and there are hundreds of adult education institutions, hundreds of madrasas. There are probably thousands of mektabs, day schools for kids where they go to for a few hours after school. There was a scholar, the founder of Darul Uloom Berry, Maulana Yusuf Motala. When he passed away, I think over 100,000 people showed up for his funeral. This is just you know, some a scholar who started a school in the UK. I mean, this is the type of devotion that you find in a place even like the modern UK. But again, I think that we just have to begin making distinctions between Muslim communities in the West. I'm a bit black-pilled about Muslims in America. I'm a bit more rosy about Muslims in the UK. I think that the French state has it out for Islam and Muslims in many ways due to their policies. I think Germany is similar, but a little bit less bad, I would say, than France. And we can kind of go on, and each case is his own kind of has its own contingencies. But one thing that I would say Christianity, Catholicism, and Protestantism in general lack is that there is no um, there's like we Muslims, we can go back and there is such a thing. I don't like when people say there's no such thing as a Muslim world. There is such a thing as a Muslim world from Morocco to Malaysia. There's like 2+ billion people where I can just go and have a generally recognizable experience with my faith. I can say Assalamu alaikum. I can pray. It's the same type of prayer. I can find a Quran. It's the same Quran. And it is just there. And it's not, that's not to say everyone there is some kind of 5 times a day praying Muslim or that they're really pious or whatever. But the fact that these theocentric cultures are still extant in the world today in a way that I think even the most kind of right-wing European populist fever dream can't even begin to dream of. You know, that is a huge, I think, asset that Muslims still have in the world today, that is powerful, and I'm very thankful to God that we still have it.
Okay, Dragoman, thank you. I just want to say real quick, I want to open up the floor still for M and Fisher King to speak also, but for everyone who requested, I'm afraid I'm going to have to tell you that at, once they're done speaking, I'm going to have to give some closing remarks and end out the space. I was only expecting to talk for an hour. I had no idea it would evolve into such a productive discussion, so thank you guys.
Let me just say something real quick because I'm
Yeah.
going to be fast, and then M can say what he wants. I mean, just to be clarify my point, my attitude on these things is that we should recognize that we have cultural spheres that are different. I don't think Muslims should be activating in large numbers in the West and proselytizing in the West at all. And the compromise I would make with Muslims is that I don't want to do any more crusades in their holy land either. And I just think that we're sort of better off kind of getting along with a little bit of distance. That's my personal opinion. So anyway, that's all I had to say.
I just really quickly had to respond to Fisher. Otherwise, I was just enjoying listening to you guys. But Fisher raised a very interesting point, which is Eastern religions in general tend to have a lot of power and driving force behind them, whereas Christianity seems to have sort of, in a way, you can say, just given up. It doesn't have that much vitalism. And I was studying exactly that for a few years back in 2016. I was reading Jung about it, and he mentioned something very important about um, Catholicism, which most of Christianity really revolves around. And he mentioned that the symbology of Catholicism seems to have disappeared, almost vanished, because of how theoretical and philosophized Christianity has become, to a point where there is almost no mysticism. In Islam, there is still mysticism, but there's people coming, the diaspora in the West, they're also trying to sort of theorize and formulate Islam in a way, and what you end up having is basically kind of the words and the text themselves become God, whereas the belief in the logos sort of just disappears. And you're sort of just left with a bunch of people arguing about theory and very remedial things like, who should wear which kind of clothes. And so as a result of that, when things really change, the driving force of your religion simply just becomes reactionary. But unfortunately, you don't have that problem with Islam at the moment because it's so new. But I can see it going that way in the West with the diasporas who tend to just use Aquinas arguments at the Free Times Square. Sorry, the Free Speech Square, whatever you have in London. And I think it has a lot to do with just formulation of your religion and the lack of belief in the symbology.
Okay, thank you so much. Just want to say before I close this space out, first of all, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you to all the speakers who offered their thoughts. I think most of the people here joined, I think, the latter half of the space. So the space is being recorded. You guys can go back and listen to the beginning discussion that led to this. We started off talking just about the riots in general and some of the reactions to my original tweets, which I think the first thread I made got like 1.5 million views. I wasn't expecting that. But yeah, I made this. Started this discussion because I wanted to explore more the deeper ideas behind really everything that was going on. Because clearly, based off everything we've been discussing, the problems are much deeper than just a bunch of gangsters burning stuff down in the street. Once you see it, you can't unsee it, as many of us say. And I also just want to say that due to the topics that have been discussed in the last 30 minutes. I'm very glad to say that no one here is a perennialist. We all hold our specific beliefs, and we don't do that liberal like, oh yeah, we're all going to the same place kind of BS. But guess what? The beautiful thing about not being a perennialist is that we can actually be honest and have these kinds of productive discussions and very very interesting spaces. I did not expect these two sides of Twitter to be in the same space. So thank you guys.